Welcome to the third part of our video about the most legendary wrestling bouts of the 20th century. This time we continue to look back at the great wrestling moments that have gone down in history forever. Today's video will be a review of 3 legendary and dramatic fights with the participation of 2 of the greatest wrestlers, the representative of Greco-Roman wrestling Karelin and the representative of freestyle Saitiev. Get ready to plunge back into the atmosphere of the greatest fights, which forever entered the history of world wrestling. Alexander Karelin's 13 years of unquestionable dominance on the world wrestling scene, during which he not only never lost a single fight, but for 6 years he did not even concede a single point. This is a strong argument to consider him the greatest wrestler in history. During his wrestling career, as many of you have probably heard, he won 887 fights. And to see once again how dominant Karelin was, in today's video I propose to recall one of his most colorful and spectacular victories, which clearly demonstrates what incredible power he possessed. And so, 1989 Martigny, Switzerland. The young, 22-year-old Karelin, already an Olympic champion, arrives at his first World Championships. Being the favorite of this tournament, he beats all his rivals without any problems and becomes the world champion. But the way Alexander Karelin defeats Craig Pitman, the American wrestler, the winner of the United States Championship, is worth special attention. After all, just think about it, to lift a resisting man weighing 130 kilograms and throw him over himself, and twice in a short period of time, that is what you are about to see. It is really very powerful. Here, check out this spectacular wrestling match by Karelin. The 90s, apart from the undisputed dominance of Alexander Karelin in Greco-Roman wrestling, were also marked by the emergence of freestyle wrestling legend Bouts Saitiev. Bouts Saitiev's star rose rapidly and was completely atypical for freestyle wrestling. At the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta, 21-year-old Saitiev became the youngest Olympic champion in freestyle wrestling in history. But it was no fluke, as Bouts outclassed his competitors in the weight class up to 74 kilograms in everything. At the 1996 Olympics, held in Atlanta, Saitiev was already a confident leader of the national team. As the wrestler himself later recalled, he realized that he was quite capable of fighting for gold, went to the mat with a crazy mood, but tried to restrain himself until the decisive fights. And at the same time, he confidently beat his opponents, in particular Alexander Leipold and Kenny Mundy by a large margin. The outcome of the final bout with Park Jeongsun was at first glance a cause for concern. After all, the experienced Korean was the silver medalist of the 1988 Games in Seoul, and in 1992 in Barcelona he became the Olympic champion. But in fact the final turned into a one-gate game. Saitiev was constantly attacking, while Park Jeongsun was defending, fighting back and enduring as best he could. Several times the Korean took pauses due to pain, although perhaps he was just trying to recover his strength. However, the Korean still could not stop the train named Bouts. Thanks to his effective action, Saitiev still led in the score, and then increased the advantage. And the Russian won the gold medal, which was absolutely logical. Bouts himself honestly admitted that during the final he was not worried at all about the result, he was confident of victory. Briefly speaking about his future achievements in wrestling, during the next Olympic cycle Saitiev was invincible, dominating the World Championships and European Championships. And in fact, just imagine, in 5 years he had not lost a single bout. By the 1996 Atlanta Olympics, Karelin was already the most famous Greco-Roman wrestler in the world. After 2 victories in 2 previous games in Seoul and Barcelona in the 130 kilograms, he seemed invulnerable at all. But his 3rd gold in the Olympics was very difficult for him, mostly because of the serious injury he received a few months before the competition in Atlanta. Triumph at the 1992 Olympics in Barcelona did not change Karelin's attitude towards wrestling. He did not lower his strict requirements to himself, and he was still impressed with the professionalism of his competitors and teammates. His ability to endure the most severe pain deserves even more respect. For example, at the 1993 World Championships in Stockholm, he seriously injured 2 ribs in his first fight with Met Ghaffari of the United States. Nevertheless, it did not prevent him from bringing that fight and the whole championship to another confident victory. Throughout the entire Olympic cycle, Karelin has been racking up gold medals at the World and European Championships time after time. However, at the less major pre-Olympic start, the 1996 European Championships in Budapest, he had a big accident. During the fight with Dmitry Debelka, Karelin got a serious injury, tearing of the large pectoral muscle, but that did not stop him from winning the title. Karelin, even with only 1 functioning arm, made it to the finals, where he defeated Petr Kotak. Except that all these dramatic events took place in March, and in July Karelin was supposed to perform at the Olympic Games in Atlanta. As Karelin recounted later on, the damage on the European Championship he got in an innocuous situation, but luckily Hungarian doctors were very competent and made an operation and conducted rehabilitation treatment. Nevertheless, the wrestler didn't start training seriously until June, though he never for a moment denied himself the idea of competing in his 3rd Olympic Games. If anything, he was going to go to Atlanta and fight for an Olympic medal. Naturally, it was not necessary to talk about the optimal form in this situation, but Karelin was Karelin. Competing at these Olympic Games, Alexander Karelin quickly and with apparent ease defeated all his opponents up to the semi-finals, but then he had a hard time. So, because of the consequences of his injury, the semi-final bout with Sergei Moreyko of Moldova was hard and ended with a victory with a modest score of 2-0. And the final bout against the American audience favorite Ghaffari was not at all the most spectacular and very hard. The fight was accompanied by the music from Rocky IV, and the audience could already see Sylvester Stallone's hero in his Ghaffari. The American really did his best. It was not without overtime, but Karelin coped with both his opponent and pain, winning for the 3rd time the title of Olympic champion. After the victory, Karelin even apologized to the fans for not winning so convincingly, only with a minimal advantage of 1-0. Alexander Karelin continued to win in the next Olympic cycle. He won 9 World Championships, 12 European Championships, and went down in history as the wrestler who had not lost a single fight in 13 years, but lost the gold to a different American at the 2000 Sydney Games. I've already talked about it on my channel. I'll leave a link to this video in the description.